Just as we celebrate every single week, House of the Dragons episode 8 is here, and I'm here to talk about it in full spoilers. And honestly, I'm feeling a little bit depressed after this episode. I'm wondering if I'm kind of the only person. So let me know down below what your guys' thoughts are. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button because I'm a geek. If you're here, you're probably also a geek, and this is the best place to come and talk House of the Dragons in the comment section because I love reading all of your guys' thoughts. But this episode's titled The Lord of the Tides. There's a lot of differences in here. It's the last big time jump for House of the Dragons this season. And with this, there is a lot of debate. One of the biggest things that it kind of starts out with is, of course, Driftwood. Everything of that. They need a king. It turns out their king is going to end up being dead. So who is going to take up the heir to that? Which brings back everyone all to the central area of King's Landing. Their family reunion, and it's not that great of a family reunion, but it is also a depressing one. And actually, one of the things I do want to start out with talking about with this in this episode is Paddy Considine, who has played Viserys, the king. Viserys is one of the coolest characters in this show, and for me, when you look at Game of Thrones lore from what we've seen in live action, this character has always been tried and true to himself, even if he knows deep down and will not admit what is actually going on behind the scenes with his daughter Rhaenyra. And I think his ending in this episode, because that was it. This was a fantastic farewell, and I think now the floodgates have opened for a bunch of shit, because he was kind of the one in between everything, always defending Rhaenyra, always making sure. And now with him gone, that leaves a lot of heavy marks for the entire series. And his final goodbye, that final shot panning in on him, one, the makeup was incredible, but two, his performance, everything leading up to that moment was just stellar. And I have to give major shout outs to that because I was heavily impressed with that overall, and I love that. And overall, I think this episode is really good. Now, this isn't one of my favorite ones, nor is it one of my least favorite. I would say this is probably my second least favorite of the entire season. His performance was incredible, but overall, the episode did feel a little bit paced and slowed down for the most part, but I think that's because this is kind of the penultimate episode leading in, of course, to the final two. And again, it's having to catch us up with each and every one of the kids because they all aged up. And in this moment, one of the things that I was really impressed with was in general when everyone got there and the scheming that everyone is doing. We're seeing Queen Alicent, who I know a lot of people have called her a bitch, but Olivia Cooke is absolutely incredible in that role. But one thing to look at, and something that Rhaenyra really gives her props is you have been by my father's side this entire time. You've never walked away. You've respected him and all of his wishes. And that ties into the last thing that Viserys tells her before he dies, the Song of Fire and Ice. Now, us as fans know what the Song of Fire and Ice actually means to, but what are their meanings to? They don't know how to decipher, and Alicent takes it in a way that is absolutely going to be a travesty and probably start a civil war within between the Targaryens right now. And that is going to be something that I'm interested to see what happens in these last two episodes, because typically the second to last episode of any Game of Thrones season is always the fucking craziest. And what is coming up? The second to last episode. And that, I cannot even imagine how insane that's going to be. But I loved how they just continue. And one thing I want to give a shout out to is Matt Smith has been very contained the last few episodes. You've seen how Daemon has grown from episode 1 all the way to this point. And in general, how him and Rhaenyra work in a relationship. They have their own kids now. Rhaenyra's kids are grown up. Daemon's kids are grown up. And same thing with Alicent, because one of them is a piece of shit. And you can definitely tell that from the dinner table scene to what he had done to the servant. And even, I think his name is Aegon. I get Aegon and Aemond mixed up quite a bit. But Aegon, well, I'm probably just going to get them. Aemond is the weirder one with the one eye, I think. And Aegon is the drunk one. So I could be getting that wrong. Understand this. This is how I review stuff, so I'm so sorry. But the one with the eye patch, we'll just call him Captain Targaryen because he reminds me of a pirate. But we can tell there's like always been something up with this one. We see him training in the yard with Kristen, and the other one's just a drunk. And you can tell like when Alicent's just like you were not my son. I disown you. You are a piece of shit to me. We see how like. And this is what I really like, is that no matter what, Alicent is trying to keep a leveled head. She's trying to show that her sons are the best and everything of that nature. Where in reality is they are not great. even though technically they should be the true heirs. Like, Rhaenyra is the true heir, that's who he gave, and technically Daemon could be too, but those two, when you look at it, should be. But they are piles of shit. And that's the scary aspect. But when you do look at Rhaenyra, and while she does have two kids that are bastards, they are more respectful. They are better in their positions. And I think there is a great dynamic to see there. And even at the dinner table, when they're all just kind of poking jabs at one another, even in the courtroom, which, holy shit, when that guy called her out for being a whore, and Damon's just whoosh, he can keep his tongue. How fucking great was that scene? And that entire courtroom scene was excellent. Like, the king walking in, the score playing him, the way that they just take their time building up to him getting to the throne, and then when the crown drops and he's like kind of shivering away, and then he sees Daemon is helping him up, that really hit my heart. And again, a lot of this episode is really much dedicated to Viserys and kind of his big goodbye to the entire heir in the show and to all these characters. And again, I love that, because Otto Hightower has always been kind of acting in his own light. And in a way, he's kind of sitting on the throne. I'm, speaking for the king. But I love that Viserys did come into there. And even right before that, where we see Rhaenyra and her aunt discussing, we see that the aunt decides, yeah, that's probably going to be a better idea. And that's what they end up doing. Like, it's all this scheming and diabolical nature that I've loved about House of the Dragons that really reminds me of the earlier episodes of Game of Thrones, even the earlier seasons most notably. But it's that courtroom scene, then that dinner scene where the kids, there's something wrong there between them. They just cannot get along. But again, it all ties back to how Rhaenyra's kids, while they are not technically, like, they are Targaryen, but they're not full Targaryen. They're not any of the other nature. Like, they are bastard kids. It's really interesting to see that dynamic and how they can bring that about. And that is the one thing I think they're doing really good with this show. Now, like I said, I think some of the episodes earlier on, at least, it was a little bit slow, but this is an episode that was needed. Every season of television needs a show, an episode like this, where I would never say that this episode was filler in any way. It's an episode that really grows and continues to climax and give and build and lay out pieces that need to be. I've always said Game of Thrones and House of Dragons, when they are at their best, it's like you're moving chess pieces on a chessboard, and you're positioning yourself for the best outcome for your show and your story. And that's exactly what this episode is. This is a excellent setup episode, and with 2 episodes left, that's where you can deliver that major payoff for everything that we've been watching. And I cannot wait to discuss this episode with you guys next week. So thanks so much again for watching this. You guys are really all the best. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, comment down below your guys' thoughts, and of course, until next time, stay classy.